And the other thing I would tell people, because I heard people say this and wanted to say BS, there are banks that will lend to you and will do 100% of the money in if there's enough equity in the deal.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
So thank you so much for joining us today. So today's show is going to be a little different of a format. It's going to be a question and answer back and forth between Derek and I so that you all can start to get to know your hosts a bit better. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to my friend Derek and get this party started.
All right. Well, thanks, Doug. I have dug deep into questions to find to get to know the real Doug Clark. So, my first question is: what advice would you have for someone listening who wants to start a journey in real estate investing or maybe a business, but they're really struggling to overcome self-doubt and or that fear of failure?
That's a great question, Derek. So. Ultimately, ideally, if this is someone who has a good amount of, money in the bank savings, right? I would consider hiring, a consultant real estate investing coach. Not some outlandish. Not that there's anything wrong with some programs. It can be like $75,000. I'm aware of. I wouldn't personally do that. I think there's a right time and place for something like that. But maybe something more along the lines of $150 an hour. You could, something like that. Another thing you could consider is partnering with a mentor. Okay, so what that can look like is, you spend some time networking. You find some people that are currently doing real estate deals. And you ask them, how can I help out? If this is more for folks who don't have an awful lot of capital to invest in real estate. Back to the individual that does have a lot of capital to invest in real estate, some other things I would do really is give yourself a deadline. Like, okay, let's say for the next 3 months, I'm going to read books. I'm going to listen to podcasts on real estate investing. I'm going to decide which way I want to go. Let's say I'm going to flip my first house. And then at the end of the 3 months, I'm going to begin the process of actively pulling the trigger. So you set yourself another timeline of like a couple of weeks or whatever. But the ultimate goal is to get your first property moving forward. So purchase your first property. Because walking through that, you're going to discover stuff that you really can't be taught or you can't learn in books, right? And failure is a part of it. So you're going to have, larger size failures. Hopefully those don't happen very often, but small failures are a part of life. And so embrace those, expect them, and then have a game plan in the sense of, hey, my mindset is set on doing this. I'm going to continue moving forward. And again, that's where using a consultant or working closely with a mentor can be incredibly valuable. I would say, working through these fears equates to walking through the fears. In other words, take action in spite of the fears. And I think Jay Scott, he's the author of the book on flipping houses, is also they run the business show at Bigger Pockets. I believe him and his wife.
I believe so. Yep.
He said something along the lines of he's met two types of investors, one who have bought 0 properties and then ones who have bought 1 property, which leads on to 3 to 5 to 10. They never stop at one. So really getting that first one done could be the ugliest, messiest thing in the world. However, you will be, for the most part, grateful that you did that. And you can be, you can't do those without losing money. However, the risk of losing money is always going to be there in investing. So, come to terms with that, embrace it, and embrace your fears, and move forward in spite of your fears.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. And so now it is my turn to fire a question your way. And so I don't know that we've ever actually talked about this, but my question to you, Derek, is when and how and where did you get started real estate investing? So, like, how long ago? You don't have to say what market you invest in, but what sort of niche that you invest in? Like, was it short-term rental initially, or?
Yeah. So basically, we in 2011, we decided we wanted to buy a rental property, or I decided I wanted to buy a rental property, and my wife was like, "Okay, whatever you want." And so we started out and we started looking around, looking at different properties. It was obviously in the height of the real estate crash, and there were properties everywhere. I definitely struggled with overanalysis and still at times do. And by still at times, I mean almost daily. But and so we went around, we looked at stuff, and then my wife found a house out in the country on 10 acres. And it was in foreclosure, like many things were. But back at that time, HUD was going through and fixing the houses to try to get them sold. So this house had new paint and carpet. And if you know anything about the government, you can tell what kind of job it was. So it was a great job. And so we were like, hey, we could buy that ourselves and then turn our house into a rental. And so that's what we did. We bought the house. We turned our house into a rental, and I had listened to lots of Bigger Pockets podcasts. That's really how I got started. And we rented it to a lady that had lost her house in foreclosure. And she's still living there now, 12 years later. So, that's how I got started. And then we just kind of grew. We didn't grow with a great plan or strategy in hindsight. But we kind of started hunting other houses that were in foreclosure. And so we bought one about 20 miles, 30 miles away in a little town of, I don't know, a couple thousand people, because everyone needs a rental there. And then we bought a duplex through a realtor, and it just kind of grew. And then 2 or 3 years ago, we got into short-term rentals and have a couple of those and manage some. But yeah, that's how I got started.
I love that. And how important would you say, is networking in building your real estate portfolio? Because what I've noticed is that's really common. The higher level real estate investors you come into contact, the bigger that individual's network actually is. So what are your thoughts?
I think that I underestimated networking in the beginning, and I think the last couple of years, probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've recognized what a huge boost that is to people, and getting in the orbit of those who are growing fast or growing big, and just having that encouragement, that like-mindedness. So 2021, so two and a half years ago, we decided to start a real estate meetup in our town, and we committed to do it for once a month for 1 year, whether anyone showed up or not. We did it at a restaurant so we could at least eat. And the first month, no one showed up. And the next month, 2 people showed up. And the next month, 4 people showed up. And the next month, 3 people, but now, now we average about 20 people, because I'm terrible at marketing. But it's, there's been some great relationships built. I met a guy that helped me flip a house this spring. There's people who I've been able to watch their trajectory and growth, and it's been really fun, and it's something I look forward to. So I think networking is good. And as I attend real estate conferences, that's where I really see the value of the people you meet. But as you said, everyone I've met who we would call successful on a larger scale has a very strong network of people they associate with. So, yeah, I hope that answered that question well enough.
That's an incredible answer, and I love your first one as well. So, really, really, super, super value packed. So, love that.
Well, great. Want me to ask you a question now, Doug?
Yeah, your turn.
All right. If you had an opportunity to have a conversation with your future self 10 years from now, so 10-year-older Doug Clark, what's the one question you'd ask yourself, and what advice do you think your future self would give you?
The one question that I would ask my future self is how big should I go? How quickly? How much should I risk? Okay. And I think my future self would tell me you should go easily 10x bigger, at least in the size of dreams, right? In the size of income, in the size of how do I want my life to be in 10 years or 3 years or 1 year. So in other words, my future self would say, look, you were put on this planet like everybody else was put on this planet to live the life of your dreams on your own terms. So you have to do some introspection and go, hey, Doug, what do you like to do? How do you want to spend your time? How do you want it to be low stress? How do you want to create this amazing life and have it be fun and easy? Start asking yourself that question now, is what my future self would tell me. My future self would also tell me, look, you set aside like a percentage of your income, and it's going to be a majority of it that you're going to risk, okay? I would say 60%, okay? And you're going to risk it in the areas of where you're passionate. So, for example, right now, I'm passionate about podcasting, okay? And I'm also passionate about multifamily, okay? Now, right along with that, my future self would tell me, other people's money is abundant, just like oxygen. And, he would also tell me so that working with mentors can help you to hit your dreams so much faster than you have done so in the past, and it also can connect you with folks that are willing to invest in your deals. So ultimately, there's a lot there. It's a super great question, but believe in yourself, Doug, and I would say that to everybody. Say that to you as well, Derek, and I know that you do. But the audience here, believe in yourself more than you ever have. That's what your future self would tell you. Your future self would say, believe in yourself, dream big, jump out of the airplane, build that parachute on the way down, take some risks. Everybody's in a different place in life. If you are beginning to, start real estate investing in your 70s and you're living just off of Social Security, that's going to look completely different than if you're 22 years old and multimillionaire. There are strategies for everybody to get started. If you're passionate about it, if you enjoy it, that's really something that you should be focusing on, giving your attention. So I'm not totally completely sure that I answered your question in fullness there. Did I leave some stuff out?
No, I think that's good. Let me follow up, since we still have a couple minutes in this little segment. Why is that the question you would ask yourself? How big should I go? Why did that pop to your mind first, do you think?
Yeah, I think that has to do with for a couple reasons. And ultimately, because that question reminds me of a question that somebody asked Grant Cardone, and I think this happened about 8 years ago, where the guy asked Grant, as he was approaching, he was in his later 50s, I think, getting close to hitting 60. And the guy asked Grant, what would you do differently if you were to shoot back to, age 18? And he said something along the lines of, like, I would have dreamt much bigger. I would have went much bigger. And, ultimately he's a billionaire now, as far as I know. And he also did that thing with the Discovery Channel where they basically stripped him of everything. And I don't know exactly the whole deal, but he started from scratch and hit $1 million in 90 days. So much of it is mindset. So much of it is self-belief. And we just limit ourselves like so much. So to have a conversation with our future self, and my future self, I'm hallucinating, is very successful. And so it's almost like having a conversation with a bigger brother that's a multimillionaire that really, really loves you and really wants the best for you, is kind of how I see that. So he would say, look, you are holding yourself back so much. Just let go, have fun, forget about the risk. And, I really like the thought of jumping out of an airplane and building the parachute on the way down. Obviously, real life, horrible idea, but it gets me out there. I'm feeling the exhilaration. I'm taking action and, learning along the way.
That's
great question.
That's good. Well, thank you. How about you? What's your question?
So I have this question. It's pretty selfish. I have, not flipped a home. So it's sort of twofold. We can start, I guess, with how many homes have you flipped so far?
So I worked with a team. I was invited to work with some guys that were starting a house flipping business, and together we flipped four properties, I think 4 or 5, and I left in the middle of the 5th or 6th one. And then I flipped one this spring, just my wife and I. We that was our first solo flip that we did. Mailed the letters, had a call 6 months later and bought it, and put all the gray hair on my head that you see. But yeah, so I guess total of 6-ish would be what I would say.
That's huge. And what advice could you give to our listeners who are, interested in flipping houses, just period? What advice would you give to our listeners?
Put everything in writing. Don't assume anything. I think that's if I could go back, I worked with a good contractor, but I thought I just kept a lot in my head. Looking back, I had a scope of work. I had everything in my head figured out. I had it written down, actually. I just didn't really share it and go over from day one. So there was some miscommunication issues. And there's just some stress of numbers matter. It's important for us. I think there are so many bad flips. In the middle or as we wrapped up our flip, we purchased a house as a sober living property in earlier this summer that was also a flip that was terribly done, and that it made me want to hug my contractor for all the good things. So our goal in flipping a house, and I think other people's goal should be that if I knock on the door a year later, that the guy I'm not embarrassed to have him show me the house and what we did there. So we doubled our budget. We went over our budget by twice as much. However, I should say that we were just saved by this crazy real estate market. So we put it on the market and had 5 offers, all above asking, and 3 waived inspections. But it was good. The other thing, I think, know your numbers, write everything down, have a cushion. We didn't borrow 100% of the purchase price and the rehab, so I felt comfortable if I lost money. It was a good education. We had a backup plan to make it a rental. So, and the other thing I would tell people, because I heard people say this and wanted to say BS, there are banks that will lend to you, and will do 100% of the money in if there's enough equity in the deal. And the Tatty Investor is very popular, talking about a bank she uses. And I thought, well, that must be nice to find the one bank in the country that does that. And then I was introduced to a bank here in my area that does the same type of loan project. So I think, you just have to keep looking, but know your numbers, have a backup plans, put everything in writing. It's always going to take twice as long, cost twice as much. Don't try to make it work. And I think flipping is getting more challenging lately from what I hear and see. I'd like to do another one, but it is a little more challenging to find them. So,
yeah, would you almost say, okay, when you are working on the budget, pad it by 100% or 50%, and when you're running, yeah, you can answer that one. First.
Yeah, I do. I think have a budget. I always do. When we started our first flip with the team we were working with, we had the GOK, the God Only Knows line, and we kind of up to 10 or 15% margin. I was a little off on these numbers because we added a second bathroom, and for some reason I didn't think that was going to cost much money. We paid our contractor by the hour, So we didn't have a set price. I don't regret doing that, but it took a little longer because the bathroom took longer. We didn't cut as many corners as we could have, but yeah, so I think definitely build in cushion. Don't forget holding costs. You're paying an electric bill and a gas bill every month that it sits. You're paying the interest on the loan. You're paying someone to mow the lawn if you don't have a lawnmower. So things like that.
And maybe throw some buffer in there when you're, analyzing the deal / underwriting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that comes back to having a good backup plan. So what if I can't sell it? What if nobody wants it? What if, can I rent it? Can I live with it as a rental for a while? Will it break even? My analytical mind, I can develop 3 worst case scenarios for anything that could go wrong. So I try to build in some ideas of what we could do, of if this goes wrong, here's what we'll do. So, but yeah.
Love that. Okay, awesome. So, and that's going to lead me to another question. I'll hold on to it though.
All right.
You ready with another one for me?
Let me see what I've got here. What would you say is a daily habit or routine that you do that you have found to be a very instrumental key in nurturing a positive mindset and keeping you on track with your goals?
Yeah, if I could give 3 answers, because I feel like they're necessary, and I'll just spit them out because I don't want to forget them, and then go into more detail. So exercise, mindset studies, wherever that is, and I'll touch on that, and then mastermind, however that looks. Okay, so exercise. I was sharing with my dad the other day that I really believe that euphorias are meant to be achieved. Euphoria is meant to be unlocked, not bought, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, and yes, there's no harm in watching movies in downtime and recreational stuff, as long as it's not harming you or others, of course. But what I am trying to say with that is that if I am feeling down in the dumps, I know 1,000% of the time that if I go, do my skateboarding routine, which I'm back to it now for about a year, and it still scares the snot out of me just about every single time, I know that routine, which goes about 45 minutes to an hour, will 1,000% unlock much elation, euphoria. I'll feel amazing, and you can get that from running. You can get that from lifting weights. So doing a long walk. So breathing the air and sort of pushing your lungs a bit will get that to you. The second thing is I'm a huge believer on studying success principles, studying success mindset, and I do it daily. So lately, you can grab that from podcasts. You've got the Ed Milet, you've got the Jason Drees, you've got Brandon Turner, you've got so many awesome success mindset, impact theory that is free, right? So that's a great place. And as you are going through this, as you are focusing on success mindset, I would say you're probably going to want minimum 30 minutes. 15 minutes is good. 30 minutes a day. But what happens for me is every time I'm studying success mindset, I have these epiphanies, brand new thoughts and ideas that I'm learning, and then ideas also. But I also am reminded, I forgot that concept. That happens to me probably 4 or 5 times that I'm, doing this daily. Maybe I should say 3 to be kind of conservative, but it's that important. There's that old saying, and I know it comes from kind of computer terminology, is garbage in, garbage out. With coding, right? Good stuff in, good stuff out. And it is actually true. I am so, aware nowadays of, too many, mobster gangster movies or, the Godfather kind of thing. That's going to give me some stinking thinking. I'm very careful about what I listen to music wise. The news is a huge one that can really give you negative outlook on life, and so I try to avoid those things and limit my exposure to them. And focus on success mindset. So again, right now I'm listening to books. Okay, I'm listening to The Compound Effect for probably the third time. It's such a great book. And next, I want to get into The Slight Edge. I'm also kind of listening to $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. Amazing book. And I love this stuff. Now, the last thing that I wanted to say, I think we just have a couple more seconds on this. Answer is the mastermind. So, when you read the book Think and Grow Rich, he talks about a mastermind where really, if it's just you and another person, like essentially what you and I do, Derek, when we're talking about success, when we're talking about moving this podcast forward, we're masterminding. So Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about when you do mastermind, there's two people, right? You create sort of like a third mind. So for me, that's my wife. And so we will talk about this stuff in our big goals in like real estate investing and even our dreams. And having somebody on your team that supports you in like unconditionally, like will allow you to dream and not be a negative ninny and shoot your dreams down is incredibly valuable. And if you don't have somebody like that in your life, like I'm happy to be that for you, audience. Just reach out to me. And I just think that those are incredibly important. But that's a great question, Derek. I really love that. And how important is it that we have a success mindset / positive mindset and attitude?
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and one last thing, we really could go on for hours on this, but gratitude, right? So
that's good. That's good. All right, what's your question?
So this question, I had a hard time just not throwing it at you a few minutes ago. Some of our audience members probably may have not heard of the BRRRR Method. So sounds like you had that as your plan B on one of the flips at least, right? Do you mind going over the BRRRR Method and have you used that strategy yet?
All right, so if I understand it right, you put me on the spot now. The BRRRR Method is kind of a phrase coined by real estate investors of buying a property, rehabbing it, renting it out, refinancing it with the goal of trying to get as much of your cash out and then repeating it. So that gets you the BRRRR.
Nailed it.
Hey, yeah, I did listen to those podcasts. I have not done that successfully well. I mean, I will say, and I've probably never mentioned this to anyone, maybe than just a couple other close investor friends, but my one key, if I wanted to write a book, I think we own about $2 million of real estate. We've put none of our own money into it. And so in a way we've kind of BRRRR'd, but we just we would refinance a property. Again, remember what I said in another question and answer. I didn't work with a great strategy. I was and still am very debt adverse. So all of my mortgages were on short-term mortgages and we were paying them down and I had no cash flow. And I was like, wait, we need some cash. And so we refinanced some equity. We bought some other things. We just kind of did that and rolled into some of those things. So, but I think it can be done. What I hear people say now is it's a little more challenging to get a perfect BRRRR. I think if you can get most of your money out, that's great. I think trying to chase a perfect BRRRR, we can always just create all these limitations for ourselves as if the numbers aren't perfect. And as speaking as a person who loves to overanalyze, you can always find a reason not to do it. But I still think it's out there and possibilities are there to do those kinds of things. I probably the over analytical person in me, just numbers matter. And sometimes it's hard for me. I see some people post numbers on their Instagram accounts and I'm like, man, those numbers are not something I'd buy. Now I've missed a ton of deals too. So, I don't know if I answered your question there, or if I just kind of rambled on about my thoughts and, but yeah.
You answered it really well, and you brought up a couple of other things that I kind of want to dive into a little bit, because you're sort of touching on there at the tail end that, basically there is different investment strategies for different personalities. And your investment strategy that you are leaning towards is totally okay if you feel comfortable. I actually am, a huge fan of, home runs in baseball and, in real estate. However, I'd much rather just go the boring route and hit nothing but singles and have it be safe. So I wanted to say, that I really love the fact that you took, sounds like a lot of times you chose the 15-year fixed and you paid those things down. I mean, that's an excellent strategy because you're really setting yourself up to where you can be snowballing these properties, and you may not be cash flowing an awful lot right now, but pretty soon here, I mean, they're going to be cash flowing a lot and you're building a lot of equity. So I really, really actually love that.
Well, in transparency, Doug, I have to turn in my Dave Ramsey card because I did go refinance them a couple of years ago and pulled out a bunch of money and put them on 30-year mortgages. But we are definitely, we try to keep at least 50% equity in our properties. I have this weird theory of, my whole plan is if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, my wife could unload the rental properties fast if she had to, or if we just got into some kind of financial chaos that what I owe on the properties, I could sell them tomorrow. And so that's kind of been our rule of thumb. I only have one property that's probably somewhat leveraged close to what it's owed. And that one I might argue isn't, but yeah, So I haven't kept them all on short-term mortgages. But yeah, I do think, I do think those things are important, and I think people getting over leveraged. I've said it. I think I've said it on one of our podcasts before, but I feel like you can tell a difference when you listen to real estate people. You can tell a difference from the men and women who lived through 2008 and 11 as an investor and the newbies. They're the people who started after that, and it's nothing against them. It's a different. It's just a different mentality. We've seen some ugly stuff. And some great opportunities. So,
yeah, and a lot of people lost their shirts and then some in 2008, the crash or the real estate bubble that burst. Yep. And that's where, if you are super over leveraged, and you're in kind of bad loans, chances are if you got them within the past few years, up until the rates started increasing in the 30-year fix, they're probably excellent. We had rates incredibly low, right? However, it is. I hear what you're saying, and that's the interesting thing. So, like Rod Cleef, he's a multifamily investor and like a guru, real estate guru in Florida, right? He, if I remember his story correctly, lost essentially, I think he had hundreds of single-family residents, something like that, lost them all, and just over-leveraged, plus there was really bad loans back then, 2005, 2006. However, he learned from that, and he came back even stronger, and now he has, sort of like rules that are put in place to protect him from the same sort of fallout. So we won't make that. So the interesting thing is that the tough times, character really is, we can learn it from a book. It's best to learn it from a book. However, experience is an amazing teacher in the sense of we're less likely to forget that lesson.
Yeah, I agree. So.
And I think one last thing there, but one thing that we can, the silver lining to where we're at right now, the economy of inflation, the high interest rates, is that this will, should be feeling like we have to be really careful with real estate investing right now. And so hopefully we are acting that way as well. And, this, if we can become successful real estate investors during this sort of market, which is not as bad as like the crash back in 2008. If we can become a good real estate investor right now, then as the tables turn and we get back into a really good market, we should be excelling, and we'll be grateful that we did. This is part of my argument, because I know there's people out there that are talking about, the sky is falling, you don't want to start real estate investing. That may be true. If the sky is falling, you can start real estate investing without using your own money. You can just find people that need your help and start helping them. You can learn now, but it's better to get started now in some capacity than to keep putting that off, because that could just be our fears that are blocking us, and we're just not being honest with ourselves 100% or aware of it.
Yeah, I agree. Got time for another question, or am I wearing you out yet?
Yeah.
All right. So I've known you, Doug. I think, did you join the Mindset Academy back in like 2021 through Jason Drees? Is that about the time you rolled in? Okay. So the only thing I knew about...
I think I started being coached first.
Okay.
But that is about the time we met, because I think we started talking back then about starting a podcast.
Yep. All right. So ever since I've met you, you have been what I would describe as a cheerleader to other people. So I thought of this question. If you could share one piece of wisdom or a life lesson with the whole world, what would it be, and why do you think that's important for everyone to hear?
These questions are so great, Derek, because they're making me think about stuff that I probably would have never thought of, right? So I would say maybe one of the most important things to share, and this is like as if I was speaking to my kids, right, is that every fear on the other side of it is, this massive blessing. So, if you have like a bully, for example, and you decide to stand up to that bully, you will feel by working through that process, you'll learn, that a lot of it actually was just fear. Hopefully you don't get pummeled over the situation, but if you do get pummeled over the situation, you'll learn, I survived that. That wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And you will feel more empowered and more invigorated. And so this whole concept of fear, and fear holding me back, I'm very, very aware of, and it does get on my nerves. And so one of the reasons why I am, quote unquote cheerleader for other people is because it is actually a tool that I use to be able to walk through fear. So like, for example, if I was going to do a public speech and there was thousands of people, I would be, willing to go do that and make a fool out of myself right away. And I know that the key, to actually doing that would be to focus on giving love, giving encouragement, and, helping other people believe in themselves more than they believe in themselves right now. Because this is, something that, okay, so I really, really look up to Les Brown. I really look up to Tony Robbins. I really look up to, folks, Jason Drees, and I really look up to people that they're 100% of the time, when you're consuming their concept, they're not putting other people down. They are telling you you can do it. And, so for me, being an encourager, being a cheerleader for other people, not only empowers other people, but it empowers me. So that fear, whatever it is, walking through it, and knowing that, look, maybe this fear is that, hey, I'm afraid to jump off of this cliff and live. I really want to do it. I guess my point is, there is probably sometimes a better way. So like, again, back to real estate investing, I really want to get started. I'm so afraid I'm going to lose my life savings. Don't put your life savings up then. Don't use your money. Walk through the fear of getting started, and it could be that, and I don't really, it could be that they're micro fears, right? The first one is reaching out to a mentor, or the first one is building a network, okay? Reaching out to a mentor that needs help, and then, putting yourself out there. Chances are you're going to get some no's and continue to moving forward. So make it work for you, but don't let that fear stop you, because a fear can ultimately grow so big that, it's essentially like it destroys your life, right? It's like the stake in the ground that they start the baby elephants off with a little rope, and then when they're adults, it holds them, which makes no sense at all, right? So that's why fear bothers me so much. And the truth is, again, on the other side of your fear is a massive blessing.
That's good. That's good.
And again, thank you, Derek, so much, for your time. And I feel like this is so helpful. I want to continue doing this with all the hosts, and we can all, be sort of getting into each other's, business a bit more, because it really helps me, get to know you quite a bit more. And we didn't even dig into we probably dug into maybe 10, 15% of all your real estate investing experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, there's just so much to be gleaned from there. And it's very, useful stuff. You're basically like a wealth of knowledge. And so I really do, really, really appreciate you and your time.
Hey, it's no problem. Happy to do it.
All right. Awesome. Well, with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you, audience, for checking out another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. I know that you got an awful lot from Derek, and hope that you got at least a little bit of something from me. And, I hope that the rest of your day is amazing.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.